Watching news at Prime. Let's get into this now. The ANC has condemned the use of the South African flag during a meeting between MK party leader Jacob Zuma and the Moroccan Foreign Minister Nasser Bourita. The party says the move was reckless and is a violation of international diplomatic norms. It's called on the International Relations Department to seek an immediate explanation and apology from Morocco. The ANC accuses Zuma of setting a dangerous precedent which threatens South Africa's sovereignty. Well, now the South African Solidarity Movement for the Western Sahara says the MK party's support of Morocco's occupation is a violation of all domestic, international and legal frameworks. The group's Magdalene Moonsamy joining us now to explain their discomfort around the former president's meeting with the Moroccan foreign minister. Good evening to you and thank you very much for your time. Let's start with the MK party leader meeting a minister, the foreign minister of Morocco. Why is that a problem?
Thank you so much, Polly. It is a problem in the fact that it's disingenuous. And let me give you some background. What we are dealing with in the continent is a lost colony, being that of the Saharawi Arab Democratic Republic. And we know that the Constitutive Act of the African Union, Article 3, refers to issues of sovereignty and respect for various aspects in terms of the right to self-determination of peoples, whether it's cultural, whether it's social or economic. Now, we know that Morocco has a bilateral agreement with Israel. Apart from that, Morocco has been a constant oppressor over 5 decades of oppression of the Saharawi people. And this is because of the mineral resources that are in the ground and the sea, phosphates, fisheries, etc. For a former president to meet with a minister of foreign affairs or any other person in Morocco to establish bilateral relations is absolutely fundamentally flawed, illegal and immoral. It has got no backbone in terms of its qualification, in terms of the frameworks of international, domestic and continental law. Now, this flies in the face in terms of what the principles of Pan-Africanism means in terms of the continent and its solidarity.
Yeah.
It's not just a problem, it's a concern because of the current situation that we face where Morocco refuses to acknowledge even the people of the Western Sahara as human beings. Now, to be in any kind of a platform, especially with that of a foreign affairs, should be vetted by the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, by the country.
Okay.
So yes, I agree in terms of what the ANC is saying. To fly the flag of South Africa means a defective representation and compromise because of the long-standing special resolutions of the African National Congress, of which he was a former president of,
okay,
to be suggesting to the contrary.
Can I ask us to separate two issues here? Because if you look at those clips that have been circulating on social media about this meeting, there is no doubt that former President Zuma is there in his capacity as leader of the MK party. In fact, what he then does is that he moves off the podium and allows the head of presidency in the MK party to then deliver a statement on behalf of the party. So where is the line being blurred here in terms of not being able to distinguish that President Zuma is there in his capacity as leader of the MK party? Or am I completely misreading the situation by virtue of the South African flag being displayed at that meeting?
Look, okay, let's separate the issue. So let's leave the South African flag as the next issue, but let's address the issue of a wolf in a sheep's clothing. Whether the statement is read by the head of the presidency of MKP or whether it's read by the president itself, it doesn't take away the fact that the intent of the leadership or of the former president of South Africa to have endorsed and stands on the same platform while the statement for strategic relations is being read is by its very nature an endorsement. So we cannot say that because a head of presidency reads a statement, that the statement is not then endorsed by the leadership of the Controversial party. That's the first thing. So for me, it's neither here nor there. Ultimately, the leadership should be accountable, and the leadership is present. The South African flag is one that we raise with absolute pride. We know that we are a very proud nation after what we have experienced. We do not use the South African flag or the name of Madiba in vain, when and how it suits us for our own reasons, purposes, and unjustifiable end goals. The South African flag is a representation of our history, of our past, and our bright future.
Yeah.
To endorse, to place the South African flag, then that should have been the flag of the MKP. Then we can say that we are not transgressing on resolutions, not only at a country, a state to state. Remember that in terms of Morocco left the Organization of African Unity for its own purposes and then rejoined the African Union at a later point.
Yeah.
Because of the growing support for the Saharawi Arab Democratic Republic, that being the Western Sahara. It also misrepresents the map of the Western Sahara. Now, to put the South African flag vis-a-vis the flag of MKP, whatever a party decides to do, especially one that a former president is aware of the special resolutions at every conference of the African National Congress. It's so unfortunate and so, let me rather reserve that thought, Polly. It is so unfortunate that it flies in the face again of Morocco's relationship with Israel, but also what you find, even when you are sitting in a meeting, is that Morocco will remove the Western Sahara name tag from a table. It's so petty. Its economy is not driven by the participation of its own people.
Yeah.
The unemployment rate in Morocco is extremely high.
Okay.
The level of oppression, because it is not a constitutional democracy, it's a monarchy.
All right. I want us to get into the suffering of the people of Western Sahara in a moment. But here's a question prefacing that. Let's deal with President Zuma for just a moment. If President Zuma was there in his capacity as a South African representative, what would he need to prove to South Africans that he was not blurring the lines here? I'm trying to formulate my question properly. What I'm saying is that former presidents are taken care of up until they take their last breath by South African taxpayers. So his journey to Morocco, if he comes back tomorrow and says that was paid for by MK party resources, it was not paid for by South Africans, and you also raise the issue of vetting as to where a former president travels, there ought to have been at least some form of knowledge by the Department of International Relations. If they say they didn't know that he was there, is that for Zuma to shoulder, or is that for the Department of International Relations to shoulder?
No, it can't be the Department of International Relations. What the former president did, and I don't even want to refer to him as such, but what the so-called president of the Nkontwe party did was on his own volition. When we established at whose expense it was, it could have been very well at the expense of Morocco. Because what we know is that Morocco has got the attitude of dollar and euro patronage. We know that because we know who supports Morocco. So it's not an issue for Morocco to fly the president and his entourage of the MK party over to Rabat. It's a cost that comes it does not necessarily have to be cost to the taxpayer.
Yeah.
Morocco has this money that it throws around, and that's why we find that there are numerous delegations that go over to Morocco, and they are called to order because of the nature of our international relations and our foreign policy with regard to colonization of the continent. We come from that history and that past.
Yeah.
And that we cannot then try and salvage the behavior of the president of MKP at any level. We can't even attempt to say the lines are blurred, etc. What he did was on his own volition, but in the name of the South African government, behind the South African flag, of which we hold to be a derelict, belligerent act.
Okay. Let's then conclude the conversation on the people of Western Sahara and their suffering. Their suffering is well documented. They've been treated as subhuman at the hands of Morocco. And that is why South Africa, and particularly at the time that the ANC was in government alone, that's why the ANC has a very clear position on Morocco, much like it has a clear position now against Israel. So let's conclude the conversation then around this Morocco autonomy plan. This is a plan we understand that Zuma went there to endorse as leader of the MK party. It's been endorsed by the UK, France, the United States, and Spain. Now, these countries reportedly are backing this plan because they say it is credible, viable, and pragmatic because it offers regional stability. Is there some sense of credibility here for President Zuma to have come out, I guess, ahead of the South African government to go and say he endorses this, but of course, in his capacity as leader of the MK party?
It's not credible in the least. It's incredible that a president, one, would support a move for an autonomy plan, knowing consciously that the intention, more than 50 years behind, has been for self-determination of the Saharawi people. Now, that's number one. Number two, I don't want to even acknowledge the issues of France, Spain, and the UK. Remember, the UK is a relationship with Morocco, apart from there being a constitutional monarchy in the UK, there being just a pure monarchy in Morocco, Spain being a former administrator over the issue, which then withdrew for reasons. And then you have France, and France, you know, its economy is plummeting for reasons that are happening on the continent. And that's where I want to go. The continent is resisting. The the Berlin Conference of 1884, 1885, the continent, Burkina Faso is saying to France, Francophone countries are saying to France, you're not going to have access to, we'll do it on our own. Now here goes one of the leaders of the continent, and I'm talking about South Africa, as a respected player on the continent. There goes a party that goes to endorse a autonomy plan which is not in the interest in terms of the people's right to self-determination. There are occupied and unoccupied territories. The unoccupied territories live in absolute fear. There is constant invasion. There is a war going on the borders. Al-Galgarat has been a hole in the wall of the barren, whereby phosphates, fisheries, mineral resources are moved through trucks. And you remember back in 2020, around there when the war began, when there was a blockade to prevent the trucks from moving these minerals. So no, there's no credibility on the side of the actions. And this lack of credibility also compromises the fact that this then reinforces reinforces what I would say is an alliance to compromise the African continent by the former president or the president of MKP. And that is an unholy alliance. And we don't accept such an unholy alliance.
Magdalene Moonsamy, thank you very much for your time. And as I said earlier, this is a story that will likely be in the public domain until such time the MK party comes out clearly and tells us why they were in Morocco in the first place.